So excited to see you all here. It's been a little while since we've talked. I have been dealing with this flu, and I still have a cough, and so I'm hoping that it doesn't go crazy tonight with this thing. And this, I have a bronchital thing goes on that kicks off after a cold or flu leaves the body. The cough continues for a few days, and so y'all excuse me if I may have to mute the mic every now and then. I have a young man here who I love and adore and who's been my friend for many years, and I'll bring him on in a minute. But we need to talk about this Tyre Nichols killing here. It is something that played out on our televisions all over the country, if not all over the world. And it is something that we've seen happen over and over and over again. But usually the ones behind the blue have a different shade of color. And so today we're talking about this situation. It's always difficult, but what do you do and how do you bring up the talking points when it's all blacks against another black man, an unarmed young man? What do we do with it? And I titled this not who killed Tyrese, but what killed Tyrese Nichols. And I think it's important that we tackle the what. There is a system here. My guest is going to come because he is a former police officer of Chicago. And I think if anybody knows anything about the indwellings of how the system works, he does. And I'll see y'all in about 60 and we can unpack this.
Report live, 7 days a week, always on time, but his time is not free. Sirwalterj Jones, always on fleek. Latest trending topics, how you jumping out your seat. Controversial subjects, others can't touch it. Community full of people throwing rocks from the bunkers to politics, finance, music, and religion. Stirring up the poverty, bring healing to the village. Son named Walter, daughter named Rebecca. Grew up on the south side, who knew it better. Sirwalterj Jones, from the Tribeca. He got something to say, put your hands together. Hey! Come on in, the water is fine. The water's fine.
Hello, everybody. Sirwalterj Jones Show. I'm here. It's the evening edition. Baby, y'all come on in. The water definitely is fine. I see all of my bunkers out here. Blessed to all of you who are tuning in from across the world in many continents all over the place. And we thank you all for coming in, as you usually do. We're excited about tonight's show. Again, I haven't been on for a little while, but I'm back, and I'm going to continue to ask you all to continue to pray for my strength so that I can get back into this saddle again. Today, we're talking about this killing that happened in Memphis, Tennessee, a historical town, especially when it comes to the struggle, the civil rights struggle. I saw the funeral, quite touching. I saw the sermon from our dear brother, the Right Reverend Al Sharpton. The vice president was there. The family spoke, quite touching. When the funeral was over and the camera shut off, do we shut down? Do we shut off? I'm going to bring in my dear brother here, Apostle David Rogers, is going to come in here and help us try and unpack this thing and see what we can do to make sense of it. My dear brother, how are you?
Grace and peace, bro. How you doing, man?
Man, it's so good to see you. We haven't done this in a little while, sir.
Yeah, well, that might be good that we didn't have.
Be good.
This,
Yeah, I know, because it seems like every time I have you on, it's something dealing with this. You know, it's something dealing with this.
what I'm working on, man. We have to do some actionable things to prevent this unnecessary death of black people at the hand of police and each other.
And speaking of that, by the hands of police, now you was once behind that outfit, that uniform here in Chicago, all right, a few years ago. What happened to that young man? Did it surprise you?
Anytime A black person is murdered needlessly, it's a shock. But because of what I know, I can't say that I was surprised because this is a part of the culture of this nation. But it never ceases to shock me because it seems like every incident takes it to another level of savagery. And what happened to this young man, it's unexplainable. Um, if you look at the contrast and how black people are handled by the police and how white people are handled by the police.
Hmm.
So I'm gonna make some statements here that we can all attest to.
Sure.
If I didn't want to see the video, I had planned on not seeing the
Yeah.
video, and when you reached out and said you wanted to speak on it, I had to go and watch the video so I would know what I was talking about.
Good.
Here's some things that we need to understand about this particular incident before we go and deal with other instances. This kid is all of 150 pounds. The video I watched was about 15 minutes long. The kid does not throw a punch one time. He does not kick. He does not seek to headbutt a police officer. He doesn't reach for a gun. The entire time of this incident, he is begging these police officers to leave him alone until he eventually broke free and ran for his life. When they caught up to him, that's when the beating started. At no point during this beating do they attempt to put handcuffs on him. There's one police officer that's spraying mace in his face for maybe 4 to 5 minutes. They're cussing him, they're threatening him. It's 7 police officers out there. The kid is 150 pounds. He's not violent. He's not cussing anybody out. He just wants to be left alone. And they beat this child until he died. The only injury suffered by the police was the police officer that kicked him so violently in the face that he hurt his own foot. And then the other police officers, of course, because the one police officer obviously hadn't had any training in spraying mace, he's spraying mace for 5 minutes. And so some of the other police officers caught the after spray of the mace and they were choking. It's so unconscionable to watch this. Um, I didn't even know what to say, and that's why I really didn't want to watch it, but I had to watch it in order to come here and have accurate information to share with your audience.
As a former police officer, there's training that you have to endure. Do you see or do you believe that these men were probably they could have been properly trained, but then is there a time where a police officer throws out their training because they're working on emotion and adrenaline?
Well, here's the thing: there was no adrenaline needed. This was a traffic stop. So let me give your audience some information because when we approach these incidents, more specifically as Black people, we approach it from the moral, emotional standpoint,
Mhm.
and then we lose a lot of the information we need.
Mhm. Mhm.
So in the use of force model, and I had planned on showing a screen here, you have 5 levels of force. You have a compliant person, you have a non-compliant person, you have a fleeing person, you have a violent person, and then you have a deadly violent person. Compliant means you're listening to verbal commands. A non-compliant person is you won't listen to verbal commands. Come here, turn around. This is what he is. He's a non-violent person. He's not listening to verbal commands. They're telling him to lay on his stomach. He's obviously terrified because he don't know what they're going to do when he gets on his stomach. So people are going to say, well, he should have listened to the police. He should still be alive. Being non-compliant doesn't equal a death sentence. Okay. So then you have a fleeing. So he went from non-compliant to fleeing. He was running on foot. No police officers are threatened. He doesn't pick up a brick and throw it at him. He doesn't pick up a bottle. He doesn't pull out a knife or a pencil or a pen and try to stab anybody. He's running for his life. He gets tired. He gets caught. When he gets caught, they begin to physically assault him. Now, on the use of force model, everything starts with verbal commands. It moves from verbal commands to using your hands, meaning physical restraint. After physical restraint are what they call non-violent utility belt issues, meaning I'm going to try to cuff you. If the cuffing doesn't work and you become violent, now I have mace, I have my nightstick, I have restraints because a lot of police departments use the plastic restraints if they can't get cuffs on you. Then if you move up into becoming a violent, combative person, now we can fight. That's when you fight. If they square up on you and they throw a punch, now I can throw a punch back. I can't reach from my revolver and blow your brains out if we're in a fist fight. And then the last stage would be deadly violence. If you pull out a gun, a knife, a hatchet, and you're getting ready to kill me or someone else, then I can use deadly force. They beat this boy for 15 minutes for being a non-compliant fleeing subject. There's nowhere in the use of force that calls for police to beat anybody for 15 minutes. And if any of you have been in a fight, you know fighting for 2 minutes makes you tired. These guys who are all 200 plus pounds are punching and kicking this child until he died. There's no excuse for it.
Until he died. There is a unit that's in most major cities to try and deal with violent crimes. Here in Chicago, we have CAPS, the Chicago Alternative Policing Strategy.
Yeah, CAPS is a part of neighborhood relations.
Mm-hmm.
So they deal more so with neighborhood issues like the trash not being taken out, kids hanging out on the corner. The violent part would come in where you would have a TAC team, like
Mm-hmm.
this scorpion group would be considered in Chicago the TAC team. So the TAC team, some people call them the jump out boys. They
Right.
have plain clothes and unmarked squad cars. So those are units that they would send out to deal with violent issues.
And
Here
this
in
is
Chicago.
usually an elite police unit trained supposedly to deal with, and I'm saying this because I got an order sent to me by what is the thing called DoorDash. The woman got out of the car. She parked the car right in front of my house, and she got out of the car and brought me my food. I grabbed her, I said thank you. She got back in the car, and a unit pulled up and blocked her car, and 5 black men got out and surrounded her car, and they all were looking in the car, and the other guy was in her face saying, okay, what are you here for? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, she was completely frightened. All
Mhm.
right. And I'm sitting here watching this. And I'm like, why do they feel they need to do this? Get out of five strong. And just young lady just delivering my food. I was like, okay, I hope this don't turn into another, case. So I opened up the door to go out into the street to tell them the girl has just dropped my food off, And
Right.
then once they saw that she was not of a threat, they just turned back around, got back in the car, and drove off. Now, do you think that was some kind of elite unit, or were those detectives? What is the system that we have here in Chicago?
So there's different units. A detective is an investigator. So if someone gets shot and murdered, a police officer will be the first person on the scene. They're going to assess the situation. We'll put the tape off. We have to protect the crime scene. Once we do that and it's confirmed that this person is dead, now we have to call the detectives. In Chicago, we have 5 area detective units: area 1, 2, 3, 4, and
Right,
5.
right,
Detectives will now come out, and then it'll be their responsibility to begin to investigate the murder. So they're going to go door to door. They're going to look at all the evidence that we've protected with the tape, all of the rounds that we cover with the um, with the uh, with the triangles. If it was a shooting or what have you, they're going to gather information because they are part of the prosecutorial arm of the police department. So, but TAC teams or mission teams are plainclothes officers who get dispatched into an area like you have the GDs and BDs
yeah,
uh, down in O Block on 63rd.
right,
They'll be dispatched because they can blend in and they can get information that, or you see, if they see a uniformed police officer, then they won't do. So these guys, they had on uniforms, but they were supposedly a part of some elite team. I don't know how you're elite and you feel threatened by a 150-pound kid to the point where you beat him to death. But in the same breath, here we got a guy who's a mass murderer and he shoots 25 people, and they take him to Burger King and buy him a number one with cheese.
Man.
The policing is not the same. They don't
Yeah.
beat the hell out of mass murderers.
Yeah. No, they give them burgers. This here, I was reading here that the Memphis Scorpion, this is the Scorpion unit, that the one who killed that young man. It says that the unit lacked training. A former police officer says here. I'm not going to show the video on the show, but it stands. Let me see. I did give the name. What did it stands for? It's one of them long names. Oh, the Street Crimes Operation Restore Peace in Our Neighborhoods. Now, do you remember Mr. Burge? John
Yes.
Burge. That guy here. Now, I want to know from you, who did he represent? For those of you who may not know who John Burge is, he was
actually,
he was what?
John Burge was a commander.
Okay, he was commander. Now, was he part of a special unit during the time that he was killing these? He was torturing black men and
Part of the detectives unit. That's how he got promoted to commander. He was a police detective, and so in order to extract people to confess to crimes, they were torturing people.
Yeah.
And so these, again, when you look at this incident is one of thousands, because people always say, well, why you got to bring race into it? These cops were black. Well, being black does not absolve you of your white supremacist tendencies to hate black people and to police them different than you do white people. So here's the proof. Where in the history of policing do you find 5 black cops or 3 black cops or 2 black cops choking a white citizen in the commission of a crime to death? Where do you find black cops breaking into white people's houses while they're asleep, like Breonna Taylor, and shooting them dead in their bed? Where do you find a black cop walking up to a white guy standing in front of a store selling cigarettes, and he chokes him to death like you do Eric Gardner? Where do you see in policing where black police officers jump out on a 12-year-old kid with a toy gun and blow his brains out within 10 seconds of them exiting the vehicle without paying attention to the scene and asking this kid any questions? Where do you see that at? You don't see that, because if black police officers did that to white citizens, you better believe, like these guys, they are immediately arrested. They're immediately fired on the first day. And it's probably because there's a sister who's the chief of police. But here, Laquan McDonald, he's murdered by Van Dyke. He shot 16 times,
Jason.
2 while he's standing, 14 while he's on the ground. They don't even do horses with broken legs like that.
Yeah.
It took us 3 years to get the case to court. It took us another year to get him fired, and the year we got him fired, the Fraternal Order Police hired him back.
Yeah.
He's working today.
Yeah.
Now, you go and just do a search of black police officers that committed anything similar to that, and they're getting 3 to 5 years. They're going to jail. They're getting the book thrown at them, but we don't see that same level of angst when it comes to black people being killed. We just now start seeing white police officers being indicted and being found guilty. We just started seeing this in the last 5 years. Before that, we never saw it.
Before that, we never saw it. So let's unpack this since you saw the video. From the moment he got pulled over to the moment that those EMT workers came and decided not to do anything. All right, the cops pull up. Why did they pull him over?
I have no idea. Here's the thing: it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If he's speeding, if he ran a red light, if he ran a stop sign, none of that constitutes you dying. This is what people are missing. According to the use of force model, which all law enforcements have, the law force continuum demands that law officers meet the level of force presented by the suspect. So if the suspect is simply uncompliant, then you can put handcuffs on them. You can put hands on them in a controlling fashion to get them to a place where you can put handcuffs on them if they've done something that needed to be an arrest. If he's broken some traffic violation, you have a responsibility to write that person a ticket. We don't have to throw you on the ground, break your arms, chase you down the street, beat you, kick you, spray you with mace, tase you 3 times with 50,000 votes, because the white police officer that tased him 3 times with 50,000 votes, some kind of way, he magically didn't get arrested.
Mm.
He wasn't fired. They said he was relieved of duty. But you are a part of it. The EMT workers should have been fired and arrested for being complicit in the death, because when you are a medical personnel on the scene, you have the oath that you take to provide care for whoever it is.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything. They sat there and watched this boy die. The police that killed this boy, they were sitting there. I was listening to what they were saying on the mic. They were happy about it.
They were. Yeah. Do you think, and I kind of believe, that they felt like they were probably going to get rewarded for doing what they did? Because they were celebratory. It looked like they were looking for some kind of Purple Heart or something afterwards. Man, we did that thing. We did that. They high-fiving, not realizing that was the moment that they signed their doom to take this young man out.
So
now,
let's talk about the culture of policing real quick.
Yeah.
One of the reasons why I left the Chicago Police Department is because of this very kind of stuff. Everybody asks, well, where was the good cops? Where are the good cops? Why don't the good cops say nothing? Here's what happens when you're a good cop and you turn in a bad cop. You are a part of a culture now where you're labeled a rat. And so now, me being in the Chicago Police Department, working midnights in Inglewood, working midnights in the 2nd District in the Robert Taylor Homes complex, once you are identified as a rat, you're a stool pigeon, you're a snitch, they're not going to come and help you. So now you get into a fight in Stateway Gardens, you're calling 10-1, which is officer in distress, I need help. Ain't nobody coming. So that's what you're dealing with. Police culture is like gang culture. And I was both.
Mm-hmm.
So I understood it. I understood, okay, y'all planning on doing something to me. And so before I allow that to happen, y'all can have it. I'm gone. I don't need to be a police officer that bad. I joined the police department to try to reverse some of the stuff I did before I got saved. And come to find out that the people that's in there with this badge and this gun, they are 10 times worse than any of the guys I hung around.
Yeah, they did a statistic I was watching today, and they said that the public is not so much afraid of the thugs on the street; they're more afraid of the police, who's supposed to be protecting us from the thugs. So it is a horrible custom. They are the greatest gang there is in the United States, the police forces, to the point where it's a protection thing where the good cop can't be good within the system because he fears for his life and the life of his family. Someone asked the question, are those 5 levels that you mentioned of enforcement, is that standard across the country?
Listen, it's standard across the country through city, county, state, and federal law enforcement. It is also standard in the U.S. Army. I'm a U.S. Army vet. So all branches of military, we have a use of force model that we have to follow in the military. We just can't unanimously just go somewhere in a foreign territory and just start shooting up everybody we see. We have Geneva Convention laws that we have to abide by. Right. We have the United States Code of Military Justice that we have to abide by. So everybody has rules. Unfortunately for police, here's another part of this. Crime has become political. So politicians build their entire political platform off of reducing crime. So the more violent you are towards criminals, then the more political power and clout that you gain. So these police officers celebrating the fact that they killed another black man is a notch on the belt for them, because now when they go back to the precinct, oh man, we really killed him. We beat him. No. Now you are part of that, and the other cops that are coming in, the newer cops, are hearing this, and they're like, oh man, we're a team, back the blue, and we got all this kind of stuff going on. When the reality is, you just committed a crime, sir.
Yeah, yeah. And their records are popping up now. As you know, when something like this happens, the news go deep into investigating each individual person who's involved, and a couple of them do have write-ups for some violent things that happen on the street.
Repeat offenders.
Yeah, repeat offenders. Yeah.
And so how come after the first time they offended, there was no action taken?
Yeah.
Because when we do a crime, I can't get a job. You arrest me for a felony, I can't get a job. I can't get financial aid. I can't better myself. You give me a felony, I'm done. I can't even vote. Here, these guys, you done slapped the old lady upside the head. You done kicked somebody in the stomach. You done commit 17 violent acts. You still on the job.
Yeah.
They put you on light duty. You still making $75,000 a year. You're able to take care of your family, and you out here murdering people.
And
Jason's still working. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah, that's true. And the city is part of the problem, because if they're not taking these guys off the street, then the death of this young man Nichols is part of Memphis's problem. They because they did not reprimand these men for their actions. And then there's this man by the name of Jason Whitlock. I gotta do it, man. I gotta do it. You know, I gotta bring it up, Doc. Okay, Jason Whitlock, the sportsman who Fox News loved this man because he says things that they feel they can't say, as long as it's a darker hue of skin. He says it for them, and they sit back and enjoy it and say, man, thank you for saying it. He blames the single black woman for the failure that happened there that night in Memphis. And he even called the chief of police a single black woman, and she's not a single mother. And she's not. So help us out with this young man.
These are the narratives that they use to justify and condone the execution of black people. Sandra Bland was a graduate. She's a college graduate. She got pulled over on a traffic stop, similar to Tyre Nichols. Not violent, hadn't done any wrong, no criminal record. College educated woman, working full time, taking care of herself, bought her a home. She wound up dead, and to this day, we don't know, from the time she got put in that squad car on the traffic stop to the time she got locked up behind bars for a traffic stop, which you're supposed to get a ticket for, we don't know why this woman is dead. So there's a lot that we have to deal with in terms of policing, but because we don't deal with it from a legal standpoint, we only deal with it from an emotional, moral standpoint. They have no emotions and they have no morals.
Right.
One of the things I found out about a lot of guys on the police department is they grew up as punks. They never had any fights. You come from up north, you up there on Elston somewhere, you never had a fight in your life. And then your dad became a cop, so you followed him into the profession. And now you want to be a tough guy because you got on a badge. And you're only tough down here, down on the south side or the west side. They don't do that stuff up north.
Yeah. Yeah. That is
You're
true.
not going to chase no white man up the street for a traffic stop, beat, choke, mace, and tase this man until he dies. You're not going to see that. And
No.
that's not to say that white people are not being killed by police, because they get killed too. But most of the time, a white person is going to have a 30-second incident with the cops. They're going to get a ticket and they're going to go home on a traffic stop.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I tell you, I've lived here all my life. Outside of maybe the 4 years I lived in South Dakota, but I lived here for 50-something years. And you're right. And I lived on every side of Chicago, and you're absolutely right. Now, the EMT workers did get fired, by the way. There was the two whites and the young black lady, I think it is. And then there's more that they're trying to bring up on charges. We'll focus on the 5. But I saw a slew full of cats out there, standing by. Is it the responsibility of the so-called good cop to stop this?
Yes. I've intervened in numerous situations on the streets, in the station, because these guys, they get charged up, you get hyped up, and now you want to be tough. So now you're going to exert this macho stuff on these people. You got a guy handcuffed to a wall. That does not give you license to punch this guy in the face. There's
And
enough violent criminals. If you want to be violent, it's a whole bunch of violent guys you can go be violent with. But they pick and choose the weak ones and the people that really are not about that life to try to exert their macho stuff on. Because the one that's out here really doing that, you ain't over there on 68th and Winchester. You ain't saying nothing to them.
Lord
On
have
64th
mercy.
you ain't down there on saying that. You're gonna wait till somebody pull up on 55th that's on their way home from school, and now you want to be a tough guy. Sean Bell. Laquan McDonald, he's a mentally ill kid. He's 16 years old, weighed 135 pounds. He had a knife, about a 4-inch knife. This man shot him 16 times.
Yeah.
Your grandmama could have put Laquan McDonald in a headlock and knocked him down.
Yeah.
You could have tased him. You could have maced him. That would be an instance where you see someone with a weapon. Had he brandished the weapon and approached a police officer, that would have been a time to tase him or hit him with some mace or something like that to disorient him, take the knife and handcuff him and take him to jail. No, you shot this boy 16 times.
And he pulled up on the scene, and he pretty much didn't really assess the situation that great. He just pulled up in his car, got out, and electrocuted that young man. I mean, it was just amazing to see. Still to this day, it's difficult to see, which went over into the political aspect of our city because it caused the mayor to who was that? Ron Emanuel was that? Yeah.
Listen, Rahm Emanuel didn't want to prosecute the case.
No, he didn't. Sat on it.
It took us 3 years to get the case heard from the judge, and had not had someone get us the video because the judge, another part of the political campaign, suppressed the video. So in this instance, because now we went and changed the Freedom of Information Act, they can no longer withhold police cam footage from us. So this is why we got to understand how the law works against policing, because we got to change the laws. If police were arrested the day they committed murder and went to 26 in California like everybody else, you'd stop police murder in Chicago overnight, because don't no police officer want to be in Division 1, 10, or 6 by themselves.
That's true.
Now tell me I'm lying.
No, man, I know you ain't lying, because I been up there to do ministry, and it's a tough crowd. My brother, sister Bogan says, I have a question for you. When you left the force, did you have to be concerned about your safety concerning the Chicago PD?
I still do, and I don't care. I don't care. I'm gonna tell the truth, and it's a bunch. Listen, y'all may not know this. It's a bunch of Black police officers, former police officers, that are a part of the activist community. So when these police murders, police brutality, we can't even get to press conferences because the political climate here won't even allow us. There are 100 Laquan McDonalds. And the judges will not release those tapes.
Speaking of tapes, if there was not a tape of the killing of Nichols, what do you think would have happened?
They'd have called his mama, hey, he accidentally did this, did that, he's gone, and it would have been nothing. This past 2 weeks, they just killed another boy in LA. They just shot a man who has no legs in a wheelchair because they said he was trying to get away. Policing in America has become militarized. This is not policing. Some kind of way between TV, movies, politics, and the culture of policing, these guys have become judge, jury, and executioner on the street. Absolutely. They think that they don't have to uphold any laws that they have taken a vow to protect.
Yeah. As I've done my research, we've been researching this whole policing for many years. I've had you on the show back in the old days of the Sirwalterj show. We talked about how some cats, they join the military because it's not the military, but they join the police force. And one teacher says she went to go to the police force to see how many people who were picked on if they joined the police force. And she said when she went in there, she didn't see the ones who were picked on. She saw the bullies. They were the ones who joined the force. She said it was something about the bullies who just feel like the police force was a place for them to go so that they can usurp that authority over the public. All right, is that something that you can attest to?
It's both. This is what I'm saying. You have the guy that was a nerd all through school. He decides he wants to be the police department, so now he wants to try to exert some kind of macho energy. You got the other guy, he's always been an idiot. He knows somebody on the job, he uses his influence, he gets on the job, he continues to be an idiot on the job. There are no barriers in the military. There are constant evaluations. Once you get on the police department, you're just on the police department. There are no continued psychiatric evaluations. You're seeing the worst of humanity every day. You're seeing children raped, women raped, kids that get blown up, folk kidnapped, car accidents with bleeding bodies, folks beheaded. You're seeing this every day, and nobody is saying, hey, we need a yearly psychiatric evaluation to see if the person can continue to do this job. Does this person have PTSD? Does this person have schizophrenia? Has this person become bipolar in their time and journey here on the police department that is now metastasized into a violent criminal element operating inside of this person? When I was in the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement, we went to Washington in 1998. We had one of the most violent summers in the history of Chicago. We went to Washington, D.C. We said, listen, this is what we need in Chicago to stop violence, to help curb violence in the city of Chicago. We need microchips on pistols. We need the police to be psychologically evaluated, if not yearly, every other year, to make sure that they're healthy enough to do this job. Because the worst thing that happened is you get into something violent with a criminal, and the guy standing next to you in the same uniform with you is more dangerous than the guy that you're fighting. And that's what we're dealing with.
Yeah, that's something else. In the mid 90s, I worked with the Chicago Police Department. It's not that's not how I met you, because I met you at church. But remember, they had the police choir, CPD choir, and they brought me in. We rehearsed at second. Area 2, I believe it was. And they brought me in to not head it, but to be the trainer for the choir. And man, it must have been about 50, 60 strong in that choir.
Yes.
When I had it. And it was mostly women, mostly female cops, and they had a few of the men cops. And what I did was I offered to do a private voice training for those who wanted it. And man, half the room raised their hands. And so I would have the training at my apartment at the time. One by one, I scheduled them. And man, the stories that I was hearing from these cops, I was, first of all, I was shocked. You bring up the psychological aspect. Many of them had domestic issues, man, with their spouses, with some beating, some stress, stress, I think a few of them were bipolar. I mean, and all these men and women are released on the streets, to serve and protect me. And I think when I saw what happened with Nichols, I saw those same CPD cops that I was trying to train the voice lessons. I saw them same guys, because it looked like they were offended that their catch got away. And when they caught him, they wanted to make sure he realized, that boy realized how horrible it was for them to lose that catch. You know what I'm saying? And they got so upset that they wanted to take it out on him in a horrible way. I don't know if the intent was to kill him, but the intent was to really give him bodily harm.
But here's the thing. Anytime you handcuff someone and you stand them up and you punch them in the face, bare knuckle, over and over and over and over, he's on the ground, you're still punching him, you're kicking him while he's on the ground. You kick him so hard you hurt your foot. He's already been tased, he's already been maced, he's already been beat for over 10 minutes. Nobody is taking that. I don't care how many push-ups you do, you can do all of the bench pressing you want to do. Nobody could stand up under that.
Yeah.
And for them to even get to that point where nobody among them said, all right, y'all, chill out. I've been in gang fights where they'd be like, all right, man, chill out. He done had enough. Gang members do that.
They sure
Y'all,
do.
y'all the cops and y'all don't do that?
Yeah, not one said stop it. They continued until he collapsed, and they had to pick him up off the ground and put him up against the police car. You know.
Here's another part that you bring up, a part
Mhm.
of the legality of the Chicago Police Department, which I'm sending a letter to his parents. Police officers have a duty to contact. If I do something, if I got to do something violent, if I shoot you, you're a criminal. We are in the middle of a shootout. I get the drop on you. I shoot you 2 times. You fall out. Immediately, when I discover that I've shot you twice, I have a responsibility per my oath for office to call medical attention right there on the spot and to provide aid. So I'm supposed to go into my first aid kit in my trunk, get out a tourniquet, and do everything I can to preserve your life. That is my responsibility as a police officer. They were giggling and snickling and giving high fives. They didn't call no 911. It was almost 4 minutes later before they called 911. And by the time 911 get there, nobody is pressing 911 to say, hey, check this kid out. We whooped this kid.
Yeah.
Nothing.
Do you see outside of race a difference between what happened to this young man and Rodney King?
Nope.
No difference.
The only difference was they used sticks on Rodney King.
Right.
That's the only reason he's still alive today.
Yeah.
Because they used the batons. But it was the exact same incident. If you put the 2 videos together,
yeah.
it's the exact same video. Because they use the same excuse. Rodney, he wouldn't be compliant. He wouldn't be compliant. He's on his hands. He's doing this. And they were just beating him and beating him and beating him and beating him. At no point during this beating do they try to put cuffs on him. Yeah. They just assumed because he was big, he was a threat. No, he was high. We see high people every day on the job if you're working in any kind of busy area.
And that's what the cops were saying on their microphones. He must be high. He's on something. If you go back and listen again, that was their excuse. Man, how was he able to, first of all, get away from us? And then when we catch him, we're trying to tase him. It's not taking. We're beating him. It's not taking. And so you hear them saying he had something in his system. He had to have something in the system. So they wanted to beat him senseless.
It's called fear. I was in the U.S. Army. It's guys, U.S. Army Rangers, get caught behind lines, get shot 15 times, and they're still alive. And they're carrying their buddies off the battlefield. They're shooting a machine gun. They're dragging this guy with this hand. They're shooting a machine gun in this hand. They get on the chopper. They fly all the way back to the hospital. Their friends get triaged. They get triaged, and then they fall out and die because the adrenaline falls out.
Yeah.
When you're under adrenaline, when you're terrified, when you're fearful, that keeps you alive, even though you're suffering injuries and all this kind of stuff. You're going through this stuff. You're still alive. You're getting tased, but you're not feeling it because you're terrified. You're trying to get away. The only thing this boy wanted to do was walk 90 yards up the street and get to his mama's house.
Yeah, that's why I keep calling his mother. And you're right about the adrenaline, because when I got stabbed here in Chicago, the adrenaline kept me alive because I lost so much blood. So you're right. They were setting up the police report verbally, basically. I believe this is what was happening. So they knew they were being recorded. So they were setting it up, saying he had some. Then they kept saying he went for my gun, my weapon. He went
Same thing. I feared for my life.
Yeah.
Sir, you 225. You played football your whole life, and you was a bum at that. That's why you dropped out of college and became a cop.
Yeah.
So you strong. Ain't nobody at all. I'm not afraid of nobody at no 150 pounds.
Yeah, I remember you telling me this on the show, gosh, about 6 years ago, how cowardly it is for police to pull out all kind of weaponry on a man who's unarmed. All he want to do is fight. And you've been trained, and that brings up another point. How are police trained today? Because there's this fight with us who are on the street. We don't understand the culture of the police. But how are they really trained? I mean, are they trained to rely mainly on their weapons, or are they trained for brute strength, or is it half and half?
So here's the thing. In the police academy, you are given tools. You're taught hand-to-hand combat. You're taught how to handcuff. You're taught how to use the nightstick. You're taught deadly force. So you got to be trained at the range to learn how to shoot. So everything you got to use, mace, handcuffs, nightstick, hands and feet, all of that is a part of your training. When you get to your district and you're in that car with that field training officer, it is their responsibility now to teach you how to function on the streets. Because being in a police academy, everybody in there is cops. So there is no understanding of fear or danger. So if you come from up north, you live in Skokie and you come to Chicago and be the police, you don't know nothing about violence. So when you see violence, your fear is going to go to the next level, which makes these guys overreact and over-respond because you ain't never been in a fight in your life. So you don't know if this guy, he hit you and you can turn around and hit him back. No, your immediate thing is I'm going to pull a gun out and I'm going to kill this guy because that's all you've been waiting to do your whole life anyway.
Whole life,
Black person.
Yeah, that
they
makes
don't
sense.
Background checks to see if this person do you have representation in the Ku Klux Klan? Are you a part of the Aryan Youth Movement? Are you a skinhead? Are you a part of neo-Nazis? Are you a Proud Boy, an Oath Keeper? There's no checks in that arena for these guys joining these organizations.
Yeah, that makes sense. Remember the case? Was it here where the police showed up and shot through the door and killed the mother and the young man who was? They said he was rowdy, but he had a mental illness. And they just shot through the door and killed the both of them, And so it's like, where's the training? So are police trained to handle psychological cases?
No. Wow. This is why I keep bringing up the bipolarism, the narcissism, the schizophrenia, because many of the police officers are suffering from that. Then you go out on the street and now you got to deal with somebody like that and you don't know how to deal with them because you've been programmed, oh, they're a criminal. They're a violent criminal. And I got to get this guy. I got to get me a part one arrest today. I got to get me an arrest today. And so you're driven by the performance that you believe is going to ultimately cause you to be promoted and gain favor within the culture of policing. So there is no mental health, like Illinois in particular, because I work with the Christian Coalition of Mental Health. I'm actually flying out to Phoenix Tuesday to do some training in Phoenix, Arizona on mental health. But Illinois is the number one state in the union for defunding mental health.
Absolutely.
60% of every person in the, what do we have? 20, I think we have 27 state penitentiaries in Illinois. We have more state penitentiaries than we do state colleges. 60% of the population of the state penitentiary population in the state of Illinois is mentally ill. They're not criminals.
Right. Yeah.
So you defund mental health and you fund the prison system because they're building a brand new $132 million facility out in the Quad Cities, two state penitentiaries.
It makes no sense because of the defunding of that, which would help someone psychologically. They defund that. These because many of the homeless are mentally ill, and so then they're hurting those who are homeless because then there's no facilities to help them, and the only facility that is where they're pumping most of the money in to help those who are mentally ill is the prison, which don't help the mentally ill. It just cages them.
It exasperates it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So a politician can now say, "Hey, we got to look at all of these arrests we got." We got 100 arrests today. Well, if 60 of your 100 are mentally ill, then the 60 criminals that are really out here criminalizing and breaking in houses and shooting and selling drugs and selling guns, you don't have personnel to deal with them.
Ayanna Jones was sleeping on the couch next to her grandmother in Detroit, Michigan home when a SWAT team threw a flashbang through the window, which landed on her blanket.
That's a military weapon, by the way. That's not a law enforcement weapon. That's a military weapon we used when we had to do breaches in Afghanistan and Iraq. A police department should not have that. A specialty team should have it. But again, with the Breonna Taylor, there is a process to going in someone's house. This is the United States of America. Improper search and seizure is a part of the United States Constitution. Man. So before in your house here in Chicago, let me give you an example. We had a guy who was selling drugs on 57th and Normal. We had to go get a warrant for his arrest. In order to go into his house, we had to get a signed warrant from a judge. In order to get that warrant, we had to monitor this guy's house for 60 days to ensure that it was the right house, we had the right person at the right time. So up until the time we got ready to execute that search warrant, we had to ensure that he was in the house and that there were not any other what they call elements in the house that could have been affected by our breach, i.e. small kids, handicapped, or the elderly. You just can't go up in people's houses. You just can't go into people's cars. I can't come and tell you to get out your car. I'm getting ready to search your car because I pull you over for a speeding ticket. I have to have what the law calls probable cause.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just can't tell you what to do and you got to obey me because I'm the police. But a lot of these police have this mindset that I'm the police and you're supposed to do what I say because I'm the one in authority. You are not, sir. You are a peace officer by virtue of the people of the state of Illinois who authorizes you to serve and protect, not murder and beat and maim the citizens that pay your salary through our taxes.
And the fact that a black man knows this rule of law, he can't tell the cop that because he's the wrong color. You keep seeing videos where a white guy gets pulled over and he knows the rules and he'll tell the cop this is the law, and then the cop will go get a supervisor, what have you. But when a black man does that, especially if he's a white cop, the white cop gets threatened or offended by you knowing the law. And then in comes you in trouble. And this is the Black Panther thing all over again. You know, they knew the law and they knew how to stand a certain feet and they knew this and this, that. But what happened? The Chicago couldn't take that kind of intelligence and they went in and they shot that boy up and
killed Fred Hampton.
Yeah.
His bed while he slept. Just like Breonna Taylor. So when you don't know the history of policing our people, you don't understand why we get triggered when we see the same thing happening. Fred Hampton was killed here on the west side of Chicago in his bed with his girlfriend. There were 74 bullet holes in the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. That's something.
So when we see it today, we're not tripping. We're not off on one. Y'all always bringing race into it. Race has always been a part of policing.
This is wash, rinse, and repeat. Yeah, that's what this is. This is the Chicago police officer shoots, killed man and woman. All right, this happened in looked like 2015. I think it was. I was looking for the picture. 2014. Yeah, Rahm Emanuel was part of that. And he resigned in Garfield Park. Yeah. So this is this is a trend, not just here, but in a lot of major cities. How did the police force start in American history?
Well, for all of your listeners who may not know this, the police officer job was developed post-slavery.
Yeah.
And so what happened was these guys were authorized and deputized to come up north to recapture slaves that escaped north of the Mason-Dixie line. So that's where it began. Boston had the first police department, the actual official police department in the history of the United States. And they are one of the most racist police departments in the country behind Chicago and Los Angeles, the Los Angeles Police Department. But now we're starting to see Michigan, Memphis, Miami-Dade. We're starting to see other police departments embracing this extremely racist, violent attitude towards Black citizens. And that's men, women, boys, and girls.
And the excuse of the police is that they're militarized because there's military weapons on the streets. And so they figure they need to match the weaponry.
At the same time, they support and are backed by the NRA, who will not listen to the National Organization of Black Law Enforcement when we tell you what to do to prevent the black market for guns occurring. So we're pro Second Amendment as long as white people got guns.
Yeah.
The second black folk got to get some guns to protect ourselves. Now all of a sudden it's war on drugs, it's a war on guns.
And a lot of these weaponries are implanted into our neighborhoods.
They would drop crates of guns off in Inglewood on the train tracks.
That's right.
crates.
Oh yeah.
A crate doesn't have legs.
Right.
So ain't no crate jumped off no train as it's passing through Inglewood and just happened to land on the side street on 59th and Emerald. That didn't happen.
No. Yeah, man. I just the naivete of our people is something else. This
We're
question
not
comes.
organized. Let me hit you with it before I
Mhm.
lose train of thought. We are not organized. And so the problem with us not being organized is we can't strategize, nor can we mobilize. We protest, but we don't produce anything.
Yeah.
So out of all of this, there is no demand for accountability for the people that are feeding these constructs.
Mm-hmm.
Industrial complex, violent militarized police, drugs, guns in our community to create the nuance that makes policing necessary. Because a lot of people don't know Chicago is not even the top 25 in murders anymore in the nation.
No, not anymore.
Because our street teams, we've been out on the streets helping these kids get jobs in construction, parenting classes, anger management classes, GED classes. Pastor Hatch out in New Pilgrim on the west side got a whole construction, 35 young men. We never see a television camera out there showing these young men learning carpentry, getting jobs, working at CTA, working at UPS. We never see that. We see Pookie and them fighting and shooting so that we are inundated with, oh, our community is so violent. Well, let me tell you something about these white communities. They are twice as violent as us.
Yeah.
They don't the same level of policing that we do in
Sure.
terms of the violence from policing.
Do you believe in the author post-traumatic syndrome, post-traumatic slave syndrome? Do you believe in the
Absolutely.
concept and that?
Absolutely. It never ended. See, when here's the other thing. When you talk about slavery, you got to talk about what kind. And then you have to talk about the babies that slavery created. So after the Emancipation Proclamation, we went into Jim Crow. There were African slave codes that were never wiped off the books.
Right.
Then we went into the ghettos. These were strategic, organized poverty centers by the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
Then we went into redlining. Then we went into the Vietnam War with bringing in the heroin in the bodies of dead GIs to kill the Black Renaissance movement in Harlem, New York, and then that spread across the nation. We went from that to LSD, speed, through the sexual revolution of the 70s. We went into weed and crack in the 80s. Now we're at fentanyl, methamphetamines, all of this stuff. All of these things are targeted psychological chemical wars against Black people in the United States of America. You say, well, white people die too. Okay, that's collateral damage. They don't love poor white people any more than they do Black people. So they'll kill a few of them to get to us. Yeah. But because we got a Bentley and we got some Louis Vuitton, we don't believe that anything is wrong. We think we're okay. We're not. We are under occupation.
Wow. We are under occupation. Man, that's a whole nother unpacking in itself. This question came up. Can you help us understand the kidnapping charges? It makes me think there was another detail to the general public is not aware of. I think she's speaking of the Tyre Nichols case. Is there some kidnapping that you know of?
Attorney Crump, again, using the law. This is why we've got to be students of the law. If you are an American citizen, especially if you are African American, you must study American law. You must study jurisprudence, because if you do not, then you're going to be violated. Mm-hmm. So when they chased him down the street and they caught him and beat him, they prevented him from being moved. After the beating, they handcuffed him and continued to beat him some more. So at this point, they are in control of his person. Yeah. Police, when we handcuff you, it is our responsibility then to transport you to the police station so you can be processed. It is not our job to handcuff you and continue to beat you and savagely mutilate your body and kick you in your face and kick you in your head. All of those are crimes. But because we don't know the law, we don't know how to persecute and prosecute these police officers that violate the law, because we don't know the law. We just know the moral standard. Oh, they shouldn't have done him like that.
Right.
Okay, we need laws so we can get him into court and prosecute him so he can go to prison.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the part that the church is having a problem with as well. When it comes to our law, the law of righteousness, is that we get caught up in the emotions of having church and not delving into the Word of God as it is written out. You stay in the book, you'll be okay. Now, this question here, speaking of pastorship, Brother Jerome asked the question: were you a pastor while you were on the force? And did you give the congregation training on how to deal with officers?
Yes, and we still do. Almost all of my elders in my church have gone through concealed carry class. So we host these classes at our church. We teach proper, what do we call it? Proper conversational, my mind will break. Proper conversational relationship with police. So what do you do? So we teach all of our kids this. I had to teach my son this. My son is 30. And I teach them, a police pull you over, you put your hands at 2 minutes to 10, you roll your window down. We teach them how to take their driver's license, their registration, and their insurance, have it in one place, because we don't want you reaching for nothing, because that's all they need is an excuse. Oh, he reached for something. I was reaching for my insurance. I wasn't reaching for no gun. So we showed them how to put all of that stuff in a visible place. So all they have to do is reach. They don't have to go in no glove compartments or up under their seats to get it. It's right there in a visible place. And then you put that on top of the dashboard. You keep your hands at 2 minutes to 10. Yes, sir. No, sir. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. So we teach that to churches all over the country.
Wow. And that's necessary so that you can return back home safe.
You got to get home. You can be right as 2 left feet. You're not going to win that fight with them cops.
No, you'll never win. You'll never win.
Kill somebody.
Yeah.
Look like us.
Yeah. So now there's the court of public opinion. It's spread it all over the place. Because depending on which news source you're getting from, you're going to see the division here. From conservative media, obviously going to support the police officers. They'll say it's a shame that boy had to die, but you're going to hear a lot of that. And then obviously on the other end, the other side, you're going to hear how we're speaking today. How would you sum this up? If Tyre were your son, how would you sum this up?
Well, I'm not going to tell you what I would have done if that had been my son. It wouldn't have been a court case. I'll put it to you like that.
Oh yeah, I get it.
And let me say this, because I don't want anybody to think I'm trying to incite anything, but here's the reality. We've marched, we've knelt silently, we've prayed, we've protested. Here we are, 403 years later, same stuff. Same stuff.
Yeah.
You take that how you want to.
Yeah.
Because let me tell you something. If cops were arrested for murder like everybody else and prosecuted like everybody else, we wouldn't have this problem.
Yeah.
If 500 black people showed up at this cop's son's soccer game, we'd start seeing some different things happen. Mm-hmm. If your wife went to Target and 500 black people met her there, angry because her husband murdered our son, we'd see something different.
Yep.
Burning our neighborhood down ain't impacting them.
No, absolutely not.
But because there's no direct consequences, again, because we got a lot of cowards, we don't see anything happen. We got all these workshops, we got seminars, but we don't really have nobody that really want to do nothing. So it's going to continue until we finally decide our lives are worth sparing. I was a U.S. Army veteran. I was ready to lay my life down for this country. So that's why when she asked me, well, what about the police now? Yeah, I know they watch me. I know they tap my phones. I don't care. I'm ready to die for this. Yeah. For the liberation of our people, I'm willing to die. But I'm also willing to take some life too.
Yeah. If
you touch one of mine, ain't going to be no press conference.
Yeah, at least you're honest.
I'm telling you now.
Yeah. Since you're speaking of marching, this last question, Black Lives Matter. What do you think about that whole system? Because it's pretty much a system.
The organization or the movement, because there's two different things.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't adhere to the organization. To me, it's just a farce. It's someone trying to take advantage of our pain. Again, I think they're the Judases of our day. They took the money that was donated and bought mansions with it and Mercedes and all of that. So I'm not rocking with none of that. But the movement, which I've been a part of since Laquan McDonald, that there are very genuine people of all races, creeds, and colors that are part of the Black Lives Matter movement. When Mike Brown died in Ferguson, I went down there with the African American Association of Attorneys. So we were down there for a week, and we had white people, we had Hispanics, we have Asians. So for my Black people, I know it is difficult for us to continue to endure this thing, but please don't think that we're just isolated and we don't have allies. We have people that are giving money, time. We have pro bono attorneys, white, Hispanic, Asian, that are giving many, many hours to issues that will never, ever hit news. Because if they did, there would be a violent uprising in the United States of America. If people really knew what went on outside of the earshot and the eye shot of the news, because the news is owned by two companies. So let me help y'all out with news. And what is chosen is what drives ad revenue. So the stories they pick are the stories that drive ad revenue, i.e. Tide commercials, Chevy commercials, Nike commercials. They can't really put the other stuff on there because the repulsion, like the George Floyd thing, they didn't expect the George Floyd thing to go international. But I talked to people who were Samoans that were doing haka. And if you ever seen the Samoans, they do that haka.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They did a haka for George Floyd because they were shocked. I talked to Nigerians in England that were protesting because of what happened with George Floyd. And now here we are again, 1,500 police murders later, and we're still trying to figure out what to do.
What is the strength of the difference between the old way of the civil rights movements of the 50s and 60s and today's movement of Black Lives Matter?
There's not a governing purpose underneath it.
Yeah.
So again, we have the protests, we have the marches, but when you ask, what is the legislative focus of this? When we get through doing all this marching, we were marching around Ferguson. Okay, when we get through with this, what do we want to see legislated? Who are we going to talk to in the Congressional Black Caucus? When are we going to have a meeting with Vice President Joe Biden and President Obama to discuss changing the laws governing immunity for police officers that are running people over with cars, that are shooting into the cars of people that are fleeing from traffic stops? So everything that we're not supposed to do, these guys are doing, and then they get away with it.
Yeah.
How are we going to change that? Because if you're not willing to change that, we're not willing to support you in this next campaign. I don't care if you blue, red, green, or purple. We need people that are going to legislate things that benefit our community and bring right order. And if that's not you, you're not our politician. We're not Democrats or Republicans. We are under occupation. And the only people that we're going to back and support are going to be the people that back and support us. If you are okay with us being murdered in the thousands by police, we don't want you.
Yeah, we don't want you. Judah asked the question, do you know the percentage of police officers that were former military?
It's a lot. I don't know. Okay. I'll have to do some research on that.
All right.
A lot of my friends are former Army and Marines that were on the job, and a lot of them weren't. But you won't find this type of behavior normally from the military because there was a different culture that we grew up in the military that's not present in the police department. The police department culture or policing in general is like gang culture, and I don't make any apologies for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's us against the world. That's how they posture. Everybody is ops, and if you do something against us, we're gonna do something to you.
Amen. Listen, brother, we went an hour, and I thank you, man, for coming on the show. Gosh, you always bring a lot of information, a lot of stuff stuff that I learned and stuff that's been reiterated to me that maybe I've forgotten. Man, you're just definitely one of those great mountain climbers that we have in Chicago, and I appreciate you. Where can we find you?
I'm on all social media. On Instagram, I'm at Dave the Millionaire Mentor. On Facebook, I'm at David A. Rogers. I have about 3 different pages on there that you can find me on there. On Twitter, I'm at Apostle Rogers. So I'm all around. I'm traveling. I'm going to different cities. Again, I'm being in Phoenix this week, um, coming up, and then I'm leaving Phoenix. I'm going to Georgia, doing some stuff with some churches down there. We just opened up a daycare down there. But if you need me, I do real estate for a living. I own 4 companies. So I'm the CEO of Dominion Vision Enterprises. So I help our people and anybody that wants to get involved in real estate to learn how to build wealth, because this is one of the things that we have to deal with in our community is the wealth gap,
Yeah.
because that wealth gap is fueling the criminal element in our community. So we can't act like we don't have criminals in our community. We do. But the way we deal with that is we build economic engines in our community through real estate, which subsidizes all other businesses. If you don't own the land, then you're just hanging out to dry.
Mm.
You can find me in any of those arenas on social media, and I'll be glad to come and do some training, teaching, and I bring all my tools, all my resources with me, so we got to mobilize, man.
Yeah.
It's time out for just having conversation. We got to mobilize, organize, and strategize. And anybody wants to help what we're doing, I want to help you with what you're doing.
Amen. And I would like to get you back on the show to talk more about the financial aspect of African Americans here, because every time I turn around, you're doing something that benefit us. You know, now I can throw a rock and hit his church because I live in the same neighborhood as his church. There's 77 neighborhoods in Chicago, I believe, and we both are in Roseland, the Roseland community, which is the far south side. And I've seen his work. He's doing a great work there, I believe. I don't know if he's still doing some work there in Gary, Indiana, where
Mhm.
and
Trying our best. The
yeah,
political environment in Gary is
yeah,
different.
it's
Uh,
different.
we have a mayoral election coming up, Chicago. We have to vote in some more aldermen who sit on the city council.
Yeah,
We need you to vote. We need you to go to these town hall meetings with our aldermen and find out what they're talking about. 21st Ward, 34th Ward, 29th Ward. My friend CB Johnson is running in the 29th Ward on the west side. We need you all to come out and vote for people who actually have a vested interest in our community,
yeah,
not career politicians who are beholden to the people that are putting money in their pocket under table deals and all that stuff. People that really want to see our city rise are the people we need to support. If you're going to vote for somebody for mayor, make sure they have more than $12 in savings, because a lot of people have been put in this mayoral race to split our vote.
yeah.
So please do your homework before you get in that booth, and don't listen to all of the rhetoric. Find out what people have actually done and what they're planning on doing before you cast your vote, because it's coming up on the 18th. We have early voting, and then right after that is the election.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I want to know. All right, what do you think about the brother?
Who was that, Brandon?
No, that's Anthony Bill. That's our alderman, man. What?
I have no comment.
Come on, man. I was doing fine for a whole hour. Now you got me. Come on, man. He gave us the Amazon fulfillment center. He gave us the Pullman, the art space. He gave us Culver's.
He
He
gave
gave
us,
us.
who is us? Because I don't remember getting invited to any of those meetings. I don't remember getting any of those construction contracts.
Man, you sure didn't, because I didn't see you out there with one hammer.
Not one time, not one red penny came from a black contractor or a black vendor that I know. I ain't heard of it,
You
but
ain't heard nothing. Yeah, because when they was redoing the Pullman historical thingy, I saw so much vanilla out.
I didn't get no contract in a historically black community.
Yeah.
started one of the first unions. See, a lot of people don't understand our history, bro, and we need to do. I really want to come back and do just a history so we can understand, because
I would love that.
movement like Black Lives Matter, it exists, but it lacks power because it's disconnected from our history.
Yeah.
So they don't understand the NAACP, the SCLC, CORE. They don't really understand it. So they're out there trying to reproduce the march, but they don't understand what was under the march. The Poor People's Campaign is how Dr. King brought legislation to the table. That's how we got the Voting Rights Act, the housing rights, the education, segregation. I went to school in Selma, Alabama. The church where the 4 young ladies were bombed was a school.
Yeah.
It was an incubator for a Black school.
Yeah.
So because we missed the history, we just look at the externals and we try to reproduce the externals without the internal framework. And that's why I really want to help people understand our history and what our real power is, so we can address these issues in our community and in our nation where we exist.
How do we do that though when you're pushing for blacks to be in office, and then those black men and women turn on you? It's like how Putin annexed, I talked about it the other day, Crimea, just chopped it off the legs of Ukraine and put in a puppet man in there. That seems like what I've been seeing in y'all who don't know about Chicago, they call it the machine. And we've saw a lot of yes men who were up under Daley Sr., and because you got a black representative up there, he's a black face, you get comfortable, but then behind closed doors, that black man or woman turn on you and do the bidding of the powers that be. How do we reassure the people that won't happen?
My good friend T.O. Hardiman says, skin folk ain't kinfolk. Just because you look like us don't mean you from us.
Man,
and so we gotta raise up people that are actually, again, from our community, that have a vested interest in our community. Those are the only people we should ever vote for. Your political party don't mean nothing to us. What means something to us is we need to understand, and we will understand what you're saying because you come from us, how you're going to address no grocery stores in the black community from 22nd and State to Beecher.
Yeah. Yeah.
What are we doing? Where's black economics? Why did the 2 black banks in Chicago, Highland and Seaway, get sold to white institutions?
Yeah. Amazing, isn't it?
We're the 4th largest city in the United States of America. And we don't have an organizational framework to fund Chicago public schools from K through 12 at the STEM level. We're still waiting on that as black people. We are not intelligent. We're not stupid. We're not dumb. We have the ability to fix our own future.
Yeah.
There are 4 million blacks in the city of Chicago, 4 million people in the city of Chicago, 10.5 million in the metropolitan, with 10.5 million people in the metropolitan. We need to be having conversations with the Latino community, just like on Wakanda. We need to be having conversations with the Latino community because they get the same stuff we got.
Yeah.
Let's hook up with our Latino brothers and let's get together and see what we can do.
Yeah, I agree. Let's say that for the next show.
I'm tired of running. I'm sorry, everybody on Facebook. I'm running my mouth, but I get excited because
I didn't blow my nose out one time. Not one time, but I'm about to right now.
I want us to learn. I want us to move forward. So please reach out to me on Facebook, y'all. Become a part of the movement. We're changing people's lives all over the country. We're doing real estate, small business development. We're building grammar schools, K through 12. Daycares, teaching our kids STEAM curriculum, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, and agriculture.
Yeah.
So we're teaching people how to farm, how to do vertical farming, regular organic farming, small business development, business credit, whatever you want to learn. We're putting it together so we can rise as a people and stop waiting on somebody to come save us. Ain't no saviors coming.
Ain't no saving. I've been saying it all the time. And if you got to take your own child and build them up because nobody want to work with you, take your own child and do it. And this is what I love about this. That's why I asked you about Black Lives Matter, because everybody ran in the streets after the George Floyd killings, and they just ran in the streets because they wanted to join something that said Black Lives Matter, and they didn't know whether they were joining the movement or the organization. They just was out there, just running fancy free. And then when something happened, somebody they tore up the stores and bombed Wendy's and what have you. Now all y'all getting blamed for it because there's no structure. And it's like the gangs here now. A lot of the killings and what have you, what's going on today opposed to the gangs of before. You had a leader, and when the leader called the truce, that was the truce. But today, a kid will shoot you because you looked at his girlfriend funny, and you're dead. And there's no accountability even in the gangs today. You know, there's no accountability, but like it was back during the time where you had organized crime.
Here's our hope, and I'm gonna be quiet. The men from our generation, 60 on down, we are our greatest hope for our future.
Yes.
Because we have enough experience and we have enough wisdom now to take the 20s and the 18-year-olds and the 22-year-olds and the 24 and 25-year-olds and give them everything that we didn't get.
Yeah.
And if we start earlier in their development, by the time they turn 35, they'll have the tools that we had to learn through the struggle to get.
Yeah.
So that's my heart and that's my desire, and that's why building these educational institutions are so important for us, because we're sending our children to public schools that care nothing about the intellectual, economic, and educational development of our children. Yeah. They're preparing them to be worker bees.
Worker people. Yeah.
And
worker bees.
All our people working at Popeyes.
Yeah.
That's just not going to work for us.
Not happening. No, not with the technology we have today. It makes no sense that people are sitting at home and saying, I can't make no money and I'm bored, what have you. You got a cell phone in your hand and a laptop. There's no way in that place that I'm ever come up with an excuse that I'm broke and I ain't got no. Please fire up that laptop and make some money. We can talk about that next time. Man,
I love it, man. Thank you,
brother. I appreciate you. Let me pray for you, God. I thank you for this man of God. I thank you for this pastor who's been doing the work for so many years. I've seen this man in and out of the trenches, climbing up and down that mountain. Thank you, God, for his strength and for his health and for his family. Protect him and protect his church. Protect the people and the men and the women who follow this young man. He is on the track. God, he continues to follow after you. And so the people who was following him, they're following a man who follows Christ. I know this firsthand. I know his work. So God, thank you, oh God, for continuing to allow this young man to breathe, to wake up every morning to make a change. When he go to bed at night, he has made a change. Thank you, oh God, for his ability to do this show today. Many around the world now understand more clear what's going on. And so now they're going to take it into their homes and their neighborhoods and teach their posterity based off of the knowledge you've given this young man. I love you, oh God, for what you're going to do for his life. Enlarge it. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
I forgot to shout my church out. New Vision of Faith Ministries, 447 West 120th Street in Chicago, Illinois. Every Sunday at 10:30 in person. And then we're doing Bible study on Tuesday nights live on Facebook, or you can meet us in Zoom. Just inbox me on Facebook. We're building something over here that's going to touch the world. And we are getting ready to reinstitute our Kids Who Code class. So if you want your children to learn how to code from kindergarten all the way up to 18, we will be hosting that here with all of our Apple products and getting your children ready for the future.
Love it. Thank you, brother. I'm going to reach out again. Let's continue this talk.
God bless you, man.
Bless you, sir. Y'all, that was the great apostle and pastor David Rogers. I love him. I thank God for his friendship and all of the things that he has been doing for the people of God and for the struggle that we're in. Let me talk to you who might be out there watching and you are of a different color. I have a lot of people who are part of, who do watch our shows who are Caucasian or white or whatever you want to call it. Because I did see a comment in YouTube about the term Caucasian being a different construct. We all know what it means when we say it. We're not against you. I have some bunkers who are white, who love God, who love the people. They don't care what color you are. They love the people of God. And sometimes it can be very uncomfortable for some of them, to listen to this type of banter and conversation with two black brothers because they don't understand the struggle that we and our parents and our grandparents have been up under. It can be uncomfortable, and I get it. We are fair and we're balanced. Brother Rogers is as well. As you heard during the end of the show, he talked about the melting pot of different people who who are marching and doing things for the advancement of colored people, as the organization is. All right, and so don't be discouraged. Get as much information as you can, because one of the worst things you can be is a silent person when it comes to the strife and white supremacy. All right, it's not so much about you doing something, but in many cases, the worst thing you can do is not do anything. When you see someone attacked on the street, you see this injustice happening to a person who don't look like you, the worst thing you can do is ignore it. White silence is a deadly disease that needs curing. All right, and so when you watch the show and you hear people like us talk about the black struggle, join in, because you play a part during the civil rights time of the 50s and 60s. There were white ministers, just a white man who worked a regular job, blue collar worker, white women were killed because they were called nigger lovers. All right, giving them those people rides during the boycott, the strike, the bus strike in the 50s. White people were actually helping, and they were trying to do it. Some were doing it quietly, silently, but many of them were being harmed. All right, and so you can join in, because all of us are in this thing together. Each one reach one, and I am because we are. Help us, because if there wasn't there was a white man who was the president of the United States. His name was Lyndon Baines Johnson, who passed many bills on behalf of people like me. All right, and he took a chance because he's from the South, but he had to have a heart, because he was once a teacher who was a teacher for Hispanic students, and he felt the pain and the need there. And he says, now that I am the president, I have the power of the pen, and I'm going to use that power. All right, and we shall overcome. All right, there's two different speeches, but he did that thing because he understood. All right, and so let's continue to fight, but let's do it with our brains and not so much with our brawn and our fists. That's why I brought Brother David on, Brother Rogers on, all right, because we all in this thing together. The day is going to come where the Lord is going to look at you face to face, and in the book, there you will be or there you won't be. What did you do down here to help? All right, because he had to deal with the Jews of old because of perverted justice. The civil rights of issues have always been going on. Civil wars have always been going on in the scriptures. And every nation around the world have some kind of civil unrest. All right, and so you live in a country where it just seems to be more popular, among the color scheme. All right, join in the fight, and trust me, you will be rewarded for helping your brother. All right, I love you all, and I appreciate you for coming to the show. We are going to be back on the schedule. Take tomorrow off, but we'll be back Saturday for the Sunday school lesson coming out of, I don't even know what we're coming out of, but you'll know when you see the event pop up on social media. All right, I love you all, and I thank you for being such a great part of our ministry. The Zoom classes will resume this Tuesday, February the 7th, at the time of this recording. Meet me, you bunkers out there. Meet me on Zoom. You already have the link for Bible study. We were talking about pedagogy, the system on how to not just learn the Bible, but to teach it to your students. It's Tuesday at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, February the 7th. Be looking out for the emails for you who are new, and for those of you who've been a part of us. Your emails will be coming too. But if you don't see the email, we are using the same link that we used all last year. Okay? I appreciate all of you. Thank you all who have been giving to the Sirwalterj Jones Show. What I get goes out. All right? It's a funnel. We funnel money. We're funneling money. So when it goes in, it goes out. Somebody today had a big need, and we had to take care of it. but we was able to take care of it because you all took care of it. Y'all did it. All right. I love you all. Diane, thank you. Judith, thank you so much. TJ, I love you. Luana, blessings to you. Shirley Johnson, we love you all. Y'all pray for my voice. My nostrils is getting better. This is just bronchitis stuff going on. Tanya, love you. Terry, love you. Jackie Miller, you know I love you, girl. If you're watching, I appreciate you tonight. Tresca, love you. Beatrice, you know I love you. Tamika, what is this? What is this? Jerome Harrod, blessings to you. Love you, brother. Monkey Moose, thank you so much. Gosh, so many of you are here. The show, there was about 350 of y'all came today. Thank you. Raymond Beelan, blessings to you. Gladys, love you. Tanya Parrott, blessings. Got your text, girl. I may not always respond, but I see them. I am gold, blessings to you. Debbie Ivory, blessings to you. Maria Rose, blessings to you. Amber Rogers, the greatest clock keeper in the world. I love y'all. Take care.
Let me kiss.
Sirwalterj Show. Goodbye.